Maya Chen sat on the cold bench of the subway station, watching people rush past her like she was invisible. Just 6 months ago, she had been one of them, racing to classes, grabbing coffee, complaining about things that didn't really matter. Now she understood what it meant to truly have nothing. Her stomach growled for the third time that hour. She pressed her hand against it, trying to make the hunger pang stop. 2 days without food did strange things to your body. Your head gets fuzzy. Your hands shake. Everything starts to feel like you're watching it happen to someone else. The backpack beside her held everything she owned now. 3 changes of clothes, her mother's photo in a cracked frame, a toothbrush, and the most precious thing of all, her mother's collection of sheet music. The pages were worn and yellowed, covered in her mother's handwritten notes. Maya couldn't bring herself to sell them, even though she knew they might fetch a few dollars at a used bookstore. She watched a street musician set up his guitar near the entrance. People would drop coins into his case as they passed. She used to do that too, never thinking much about it, just loose change. But now she understood that those coins meant the difference between eating and going hungry another day. Maya pulled her jacket tighter. October in the city was getting cold and she only had this thin jacket. Her winter coat had been in the apartment when the landlord locked her out, along with everything else. Her books, her clothes, the small keyboard her mother had saved up for years to buy her. The memories hit her in waves when she least expected them. Her mother's laugh, the smell of jasmine tea in their tiny kitchen, the way her mother would hum while cooking, always off-key, and Maya would tease her about it. God, what she would give to hear that off-key humming one more time. The heart attack had come without warning. Her mother was only 42, healthy, or so they thought. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. Maya had been at school in the middle of a piano lesson when she got the call. She didn't even get to say goodbye. The funeral had wiped out what little savings they had. Then came the medical bills. Mountains of them. Her mother hadn't had insurance. She'd been working 3 part-time jobs, none of them offering benefits. Maya tried to handle it all while keeping up with school, but it was like trying to hold water in her hands. Everything just slipped away. The Berkshire Conservatory had been understanding at first. They'd given her a month, then another month. But when she couldn't come up with the tuition for the spring semester, that was it. Scholarship revoked. Dream over. Pack your things. Maya had nowhere to go. No grandparents, no aunts or uncles, no cousins. Her mother had been an only child, and her father had never been in the picture. Her mother's friends had their own struggles, their own families to worry about. She couldn't burden them, so here she was, 19 years old, with a gift that had once seemed like her ticket to a better life. Now sleeping in subway stations and public libraries, washing up in fast food restaurant bathrooms, trying to stay safe, stay invisible, stay alive. A police officer walked by and Maya lowered her eyes. She'd learned quickly that eye contact was dangerous when you were homeless. It drew attention, and attention meant being told to move along, being asked for ID, being looked at with suspicion or pity. She wasn't sure which was worse. The subway musician started playing. He wasn't very good, but people still dropped coins. Maya felt a pang in her chest. She had been good, really good. At 16, she'd won the Junior International Chopin competition. There had been articles about her, photos. People had said she had a brilliant future ahead of her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. The battery was at 5%. She'd been charging it at the library, but they'd be closed now. She pulled it out and saw a notification. Someone had shared an old article about her competition win. Whatever happened to this talented girl? The comment asked. Maya's eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She'd cried enough. Crying didn't change anything. It didn't bring her mother back. It didn't put food in her stomach or a roof over her head. She thought about her hands. These hands that had played for audiences, that had brought people to tears with their music. Now they were dirty, the nails broken, the skin dry and cracked from the cold. She used to moisturize them every night. Take such careful care of them. Her mother had insisted on it. Your hands are your future, she'd say. Some future. A woman walked by with a takeout bag from an expensive restaurant. The smell of food made Maya's mouth water. She turned away, trying not to think about it, trying not to remember what it felt like to eat until you were full, to have seconds to throw food away because you'd cooked too much. The temperature was dropping. Maya knew she'd need to find somewhere warmer to sleep tonight. The subway station was okay, but security sometimes cleared people out around midnight. There was a shelter a few blocks away, but last time she'd tried to go there, it was full. Turned away at the door with nowhere else to go, she thought about her mother's words, the ones she'd said over and over throughout Maya's childhood. Your gift isn't just for you, sweetheart. It's meant to touch others, to bring beauty into the world. Never forget that. But what good was a gift if you couldn't use it? What good was talent when you were too hungry to think straight, too tired to care, too broken to believe in anything anymore? Maya closed her eyes and tried to remember the feeling of sitting at a piano. The smooth keys under her fingers, the way the music would flow through her, like she wasn't even controlling it, like it was coming from somewhere beyond her. The applause afterward, the joy on her mother's face in the audience. A little girl walked by holding her mother's hand, chattering excitedly about her piano lesson. The mother smiled down at her with such love, such pride. Maya had to look away. The ache in her chest was worse than the hunger in her stomach. She stood up, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. Time to start walking. Movement kept you warm, and staying in one place too long attracted attention. She'd walk until she got too tired, then find somewhere relatively safe to rest for a few hours. As she climbed the stairs out of the subway, Maya passed a poster for a concert at Carnegie Hall, a famous pianist whose name she recognized. Tickets starting at $200. She'd dreamed of playing there once, had practiced for hours imagining it. That dream felt like it belonged to a different person now. A different life. A girl who'd never known what it meant to be truly desperate, truly alone, truly forgotten. But somewhere deep inside, buried under all the pain and fear and exhaustion, a small part of Maya still remembered who she'd been. Still remembered the feeling of making music so beautiful it could make people forget their troubles. Even just for a moment, she didn't know it yet. But that small part would save her life. The restaurant looked like something from a movie. All warm lighting and white tablecloths with crystal glasses that probably cost more than Maya used to spend on groceries in a month. Through the large windows, she could see well-dressed people laughing, eating, living lives that felt a million miles away from hers. She'd been walking for 3 hours and her legs were shaking. Not just from tiredness anymore. She hadn't eaten in 2 full days and her body was starting to give up. The dizziness came in waves now and she'd had to sit down twice just to keep from falling over. That's when she'd seen it. Through the window of this fancy Italian place called Maestro's, a beautiful grand piano sitting in the corner, its black surface gleaming under a spotlight. And suddenly, desperately, Maya had an idea. A terrible, humiliating idea. But she was past the point of pride. She pushed open the heavy door and immediately felt every eye in the place turn toward her. The warmth hit her first, actual heat, the kind she hadn't felt in days. Then came the smells. Garlic, fresh bread, tomato sauce, roasted meat. Her stomach twisted so painfully she almost gasped. A man in a perfect black suit appeared in front of her within seconds. His name tag said Richard, and the look on his face told Maya everything she needed to know. She'd seen that look before in the past few weeks. Disgust mixed with annoyance, mixed with a determination to make her someone else's problem. "Can I help you?" His voice was cold, professional. The kind of polite that wasn't polite at all. Maya tried to stand up straighter, tried to ignore how dirty her clothes were, how greasy her hair must look. She'd washed up in a McDonald's bathroom that morning, but it wasn't the same as a real shower. Nothing was ever really clean when you lived on the streets. "I saw your piano," she said, and her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "I was wondering, I'm a pianist and could I play something? Just one piece? In exchange for maybe something small from the kitchen? I'm not picky, just anything." The words felt like rocks in her mouth. Each one cost her a piece of dignity she'd been trying so hard to hold on to. Richard's eyebrows went up. For a second, Maya thought maybe, just maybe, he'd say yes, but then his mouth curved into a smile that made her skin crawl. He laughed. Actually laughed. Not a small chuckle, but a loud theatrical laugh that made several diners look over. "Did you hear that?" Richard called out to another waiter, a young guy with styled hair and a smirk already forming. "She wants to play piano for food." The other waiter, his name tag said Brad, walked over with this expression like he was watching something entertaining on TV. "Oh man, seriously? What's next? You gonna dance for dessert too?" Maya's face burned. She could feel tears starting, but she forced them back. "Don't cry. Don't give them that. I'm a trained pianist," she said, hating how her voice shook. "I've performed professionally. I'm going through a hard time right now, and I thought maybe— Look, sweetie, Richard interrupted, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. We're not a charity. This is a high-end establishment. We can't just have random people off the street playing our very expensive piano. A well-dressed man at a nearby table pulled out his phone. Maya saw him angle it toward her, recording. Her stomach dropped. This was going to end up online. Her humiliation broadcast for the world to see. Please, Maya tried one more time, her voice barely a whisper now. I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten in— Yeah, Brad cut in, waving his hand dismissively. We've heard it all before. There's a soup kitchen on 5th Street. Try there. I did. They were closed. Not our problem. Brad was grinning now, actually enjoying this. Seriously though, what made you think you could just walk into Maestro's and ask for free food? You see all these people? They paid for their meals. That's how restaurants work. A few diners laughed. Some looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. Maya wanted the floor to swallow her whole. This was a mistake. A horrible, stupid mistake. I'm going to have to ask you to leave, Richard said, his hand moving toward what Maya guessed was a phone to call security. Before we make this official. Oh, come on, Richard, don't call the cops yet. The voice came from the man with the recording phone. He was young, maybe late 20s, wearing an expensive watch and designer clothes. This is gold. Let her finish embarrassing herself first. More laughter. Maya's vision blurred. From hunger or tears or both, she wasn't sure anymore. I should never have come in here, she whispered, turning toward the door. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for bothering you. She was almost to the exit when another voice cut through the restaurant. Older, female with an accent Maya couldn't quite place. Wait, everyone turned. The voice came from a corner table where an elderly woman sat alone. She had white hair pulled back elegantly, and she was wearing a pearl necklace that looked like it belonged in a museum. But it was her eyes that caught Maya's attention. Sharp, intelligent eyes that weren't looking at her with pity or disgust. They were studying her. Let her play, the woman said simply. Richard sputtered. Mrs. Rothstein, with all due respect, we can't just— Why not? The woman, Mrs. Rothstein, set down her wine glass with a soft click. You have a piano. She says she can play. Let her play. If she's terrible, you'll all have your laugh. If she's good? She paused, her eyes still on Maya. Well, then perhaps you'll learn something about judging books by their covers. The man with the phone— Maya could now see a name tag on his shirt that said Derek, assistant manager— looked uncertain. Grandma Elena, this isn't really— I'm not asking, Derek, I'm telling you. Let her play, or I'll take my business elsewhere. And you know how much I've been spending here since your grandfather passed. The restaurant went quiet. Maya could feel the tension, the calculation happening behind Derek's eyes. Money versus pride. Money won. Fine. Derek's voice was tight. He gestured toward the piano with mock generosity, his phone still recording. Go ahead. Show us what you've got. But when you can't play anything more complicated than chopsticks, don't expect any sympathy. Maya walked toward the piano on shaking legs. Every step felt like walking through water. The restaurant stayed quiet, but she could feel all their eyes on her, judging, waiting for her to fail. Her hands were trembling when she reached the bench. When was the last time she'd actually touched a piano? 3 months? 4? The keys looked so perfect, so clean. Her hands looked so dirty in comparison. She sat down slowly, the bench feeling strange after so long. She could hear whispers behind her. Someone giggled. Derek had moved closer with his phone, making sure to get a good angle. Maya closed her eyes and tried to remember what her mother used to say before every performance. The music isn't in the piano, sweetheart. It's in your heart. The piano is just how you let it out. She placed her fingers on the keys. They were cool and smooth, and suddenly she was 16 again, walking onto a stage in Poland, about to play for judges from around the world. She remembered that feeling, the fear and the excitement and the absolute certainty that this was what she was meant to do. Her hands stopped shaking. Maya took one deep breath and began to play. The first notes filled the restaurant like water filling an empty glass. Soft at first, almost questioning, then stronger, more certain. Maya's fingers moved across the keys, and it was like coming home after being lost for so long. She'd chosen Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. It was the piece she'd played at the competition in Poland. The piece her mother had loved most. The piece that told a story without words, of struggle, of beauty, of hope fighting against darkness. Behind her, she heard someone's fork clatter onto a plate. The whispers stopped. Even Derek's mocking expression started to change, though Maya couldn't see it. Her eyes were closed, and she was somewhere else now. Somewhere beyond this restaurant, beyond her hunger, beyond her fear. Her fingers knew exactly where to go, muscle memory that no amount of time could erase. The piano responded beautifully, each note crystal clear. This instrument was worth more than anything Maya had ever owned, and it sang under her hands like it had been waiting for her. The music built slowly, the way Chopin had intended. Gentle runs that grew into something powerful, something urgent. Maya poured everything into it. Every night she'd spent cold and afraid. Every moment she'd missed her mother so badly she could barely breathe. Every time she'd wondered if she'd ever play again, ever be anything more than invisible. The technical parts came easily, even after months away. Her hands flew across the keys in passages that most pianists spent years perfecting. But it wasn't the technique that made people stop eating, stop talking, stop everything. It was what she put into the music. The raw emotion that couldn't be faked or taught. In the corner where Mrs. Rothstein sat, the old woman's eyes had filled with tears. She recognized what she was hearing. Real artistry. Real pain transformed into something beautiful. She'd spent 50 years as a concert violinist before arthritis had stolen that from her. She knew genius when she heard it. A line cook had pushed through the kitchen doors drawn by the music. Then another. Soon the entire kitchen staff stood in the doorway, watching this dirty, homeless girl play like her life depended on it. Because maybe it did. Maya's tears started during the middle section, the part that always got to her. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The music carried her forward, and she let it. Let it say everything she couldn't put into words. The grief, the loneliness, the desperate hope that somehow, someday, things would be okay again. Brad, the waiter who'd mocked her, stood frozen with a water pitcher in his hand. His smirk was completely gone. He'd never heard anything like this in his life. None of them had. Richard, the maitre d', felt something twist in his chest. Shame, maybe, or the realization that he'd almost thrown out someone extraordinary. He thought about all the times he'd judged people by their appearance, by their clothes, by whether they belonged in a place like this. This moment was teaching him something he'd spent 40 years refusing to learn. The music grew more intense. Maya's whole body moved with it now, swaying slightly, completely lost in the piece. Her technique was flawless, but that wasn't what had everyone mesmerized. It was the story she was telling. Without a single word, she was sharing her heart with a room full of strangers. Derek still held his phone, but he'd stopped smirking. The video was still recording, capturing every note, every moment, but he wasn't thinking about social media anymore. He was just watching, stunned, as this girl he'd been ready to humiliate revealed herself to be something he'd never expected. An older businessman at table 12 wiped his eyes, not caring that his wife saw. A young couple on their anniversary held hands tighter. A mother thought about her own daughter's piano lessons and wondered if she'd been pushing hard enough, or maybe too hard. The music reached its climax, Maya's fingers dancing across the keys with impossible speed and precision. The emotion built and built until it felt like the whole restaurant might shatter from it. Then slowly, carefully, she brought it back down. The ending was gentle, almost questioning, like asking if there was still hope in the world. Like believing maybe there was. The final notes hung in the air for a moment. Maya kept her hands on the keys, her eyes still closed, her face wet with tears. The silence that followed was complete. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Mrs. Rothstein stood up and began to clap. The applause started slow, just her. But within seconds, the entire restaurant was on their feet. Thunderous applause filled the space. People weren't just clapping politely. They were celebrating, shouting, some still crying. The kitchen staff banged on pots. A woman near the window was calling someone on her phone, saying, "You won't believe what I just heard." Maya opened her eyes slowly, like waking from a dream. She looked around at all these people standing, applauding for her, and couldn't quite process it. Was this real? Or had hunger finally made her hallucinate? Mrs. Rothstein walked toward the piano and the crowd quieted down. She moved with the careful grace of someone who'd spent their life on stages. When she reached Maya, she gently took the girl's dirty, trembling hands in her own perfectly manicured ones. "What's your full name, child?" Mrs. Rothstein's voice was soft but clear. "Maya Chen." Maya's voice was hoarse from crying. Mrs. Rothstein's eyes widened. "Maya Chen, The Maya Chen who won the Junior International Chopin competition 3 years ago? The one all the music magazines wrote about? Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. How did this woman know about that? I read about you. Mrs. Rothstein's grip tightened on Maya's hands. There was an article. It talked about your mother working 3 jobs to support your gift. It said you were going to be one of the greats. She paused, studying Maya's face, her dirty clothes, understanding dawning. What happened to you? Maya's face crumpled. My mother died. 6 months ago. I lost everything. She couldn't finish. The sobs came too hard. Mrs. Rothstein pulled Maya into a hug, and Maya let herself be held. This stranger who'd been the only one to give her a chance, who'd seen past the dirt and the desperation to the person underneath. Derek stood a few feet away, his phone still in his hand, his face pale. The video had caught everything. The mockery, the cruelty, and then this impossible beautiful performance. He looked at the screen, at the thousands of people who'd already started watching the live stream he'd accidentally left running. The comments were pouring in and they weren't kind. Not to him. Not to the restaurant. Get her food, Mrs. Rothstein commanded, not letting go of Maya. Get her whatever she wants, and bring me the owner. Now. Brad rushed toward the kitchen, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Richard stood rooted to the spot, his face red. The other diners had started pulling out their phones too. Some recording, some taking pictures, some already typing frantically. A man at table 6 approached cautiously. Miss Chen, I'm a talent manager. I'd like to give you my card, please, when you're ready. Another woman called out, I work for the Philharmonic. We'd love to talk to you about performing. More people approached, pressing money into Maya's hands, business cards, offers of help. She couldn't process any of it. It felt like the world had turned upside down in the space of 10 minutes. Mrs. Rothstein guided Maya to her table and sat her down. A waiter appeared with a full plate of pasta, bread, salad. Maya stared at it like she'd never seen food before. Eat slowly, Mrs. Rothstein said gently. Your stomach won't handle too much at once. Maya picked up the fork with shaking hands and took the first bite. It was the best thing she'd ever tasted. Or maybe she was just that hungry. She tried to eat slowly like Mrs. Rothstein said, but it was so hard when her body was screaming for more. Across the restaurant, Derek looked down at his phone again. The video had been shared thousands of times already. The caption he'd written, meant to be mocking, now seemed cruel. Homeless girl claims she can play piano for food. Wait for it! The comments tore him apart. People were finding the restaurant's social media, leaving 1-star reviews demanding apologies. Some were even finding him personally, calling him every terrible name he probably deserved. For the first time in his privileged life, Derek understood what it meant to be on the other side of judgment. Maya woke up the next morning in a bed. An actual bed with clean sheets and a soft pillow. For a few seconds, she thought she was dreaming. Then it all came rushing back. The restaurant. The piano. Mrs. Rothstein. After Maya had eaten, Mrs. Rothstein had made it clear she wasn't letting Maya go back to the streets. The old woman had brought her to this beautiful brownstone in the Upper East Side and shown her to a guest room. Maya had cried when she saw the bathroom. A real shower with hot water and clean towels. She'd stood under that water for almost an hour, watching weeks of dirt and despair wash down the drain. She'd scrubbed her skin until it was pink, washed her hair 3 times, and cried some more. The girl who'd walked into that restaurant felt like a different person from the one who'd climbed into this bed. Now, morning light filtered through expensive curtains. Maya could smell coffee brewing downstairs. For the first time in months, she felt something close to safe. When she made her way down to the kitchen, Mrs. Rothstein was already there, reading something on her tablet. The old woman looked up and smiled warmly. Good morning, dear. How did you sleep? Like I was dead, Maya said honestly, then winced. Sorry, that was perfectly understandable. Mrs. Rothstein gestured to a chair. Sit, eat. We have a lot to discuss. The table had more food than Maya had seen in months. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, toast. She tried not to stare, tried to take small portions like a normal person, but Mrs. Rothstein noticed her hesitation. Take as much as you want. There's plenty. While Maya ate, Mrs. Rothstein slid her tablet across the table. You should see this. Maya looked at the screen and froze. It was Derek's video. the one he'd recorded at the restaurant. But now it had numbers next to it that didn't seem real. 50 million views. 50 million. It went viral overnight, Mrs. Rothstein explained. Everyone's sharing it. Musicians, celebrities, news outlets. They're calling you the piano girl. Some are calling you a genius. Others are furious about how you were treated. Maya scrolled through the comments, her hands shaking. People from all over the world had watched her play, had watched her be humiliated, had watched her transform that humiliation into something beautiful. Oh my God, Maya whispered. Someone had found the old articles about her competition win. Another person had dug up a video of her performing when she was 16. The internet had figured out her entire story in less than 12 hours. There's more, Mrs. Rothstein said gently. Your phone has been buzzing all morning. I charged it for you. Maya picked up her phone and nearly dropped it. Hundreds of notifications, messages, emails, missed calls. She opened her email first and couldn't believe what she was seeing. The Berkshire Conservatory had sent an official message. Maya's heart pounded as she read it. They were apologizing, publicly apologizing. They wanted to reinstate her scholarship immediately, cover all her expenses, provide housing. They mentioned something about a special hardship fund they were creating in her mother's name. They're just covering themselves, Maya said quietly. They didn't care before. They only care now because everyone's watching. You're right, Mrs. Rothstein agreed. But does that matter? They're still offering you a chance to finish your education. Maya kept scrolling. A talent agent wanted to represent her. A concert hall in Boston was offering her a performance slot. Someone from the Today Show wanted her for an interview. A philanthropist had started a fund to help young musicians facing hardship and wanted to name it after her mother. It was too much. Way too much. I don't understand, Maya said, her voice breaking. Yesterday I was nobody. I was invisible. How did everything change so fast? Mrs. Rothstein reached across and took Maya's hand. You were never nobody, dear. The world just wasn't paying attention. Sometimes it takes a moment like this for people to see what was always there. Maya's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from a number she didn't recognize. She opened it and read, This is Antonio Castellano. I own Maestro's. I am deeply sorry for how you were treated in my restaurant. I would like to speak with you when you're ready. I want to make this right. The owner's son posted an apology video this morning, Mrs. Rothstein said. Derek, the one who was recording you. He looked like he'd been crying. Said he was ashamed of himself. Said seeing you play taught him that you can't judge people by their circumstances. It's already been shared millions of times too. Maya didn't know what to feel about that. Part of her was angry. They'd been so cruel, so ready to humiliate her. But another part understood that people could learn, could change. Wasn't that what her mother had always taught her? That everyone deserves a chance to be better? What should I do? Maya asked. She felt overwhelmed, like she was drowning in possibilities after months of having none. First, you take care of yourself, Mrs. Rothstein said firmly. You've been through trauma. Your body needs to recover. Your mind needs to rest. Then we figure out the next steps together. You don't have to decide everything today. But the world wasn't going to wait. Maya's story had touched something in people. Within hours, news outlets were running features. From homeless to viral sensation, the piano prodigy who played for food. How a moment of cruelty revealed an extraordinary talent. The girl who reminded us not to judge. The restaurant was getting destroyed online. 1-star reviews flooded in. People were threatening boycotts. Some of the comments were harsh, calling for Richard and Brad to be fired, calling the restaurant a disgrace. But something else was happening too. Other homeless people were sharing their own stories. Musicians who'd struggled were posting about the difficulty of making it in the arts. The conversation had grown bigger than just Maya's moment at the piano. By afternoon, Mrs. Rothstein had helped Maya draft a statement. They posted it on a new social media account that already had 200,000 followers. Thank you all for your support, Maya had written. What happened to me happens to people every day. Homelessness can happen to anyone. Loss can happen to anyone. I'm grateful for this second chance, but I think about all the talented people who never get one, who never get seen. Please remember that everyone you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about. Please be kind. The post was shared 1,000,000 times in an hour. That evening, Mrs. Rothstein made Maya tea, and they sat in the living room together. The old woman had been making phone calls all day, organizing things, protecting Maya from the chaos. Why are you helping me? Maya asked. You don't even know me. Mrs. Rothstein was quiet for a moment. When I was young, I was a violinist. Quite good, actually. I performed all over the world. But I came from nothing like you. I got lucky. Someone gave me a chance when I needed it most. A teacher who saw past my circumstances to my potential. She changed my life. She smiled sadly. She died many years ago and I never got to properly thank her. So now I try to be for others what she was for me. Maya felt tears coming again. She'd cried more in the past 24 hours than she had in months. There's something else, Mrs. Rothstein continued. I've been talking to people. Important people in the music world. They want to organize a benefit concert. At Carnegie Hall, they want you to headline it. All proceeds would go to helping homeless youth with artistic talents. They're calling it Music for the Marginalized. Carnegie Hall. The place Maya had dreamed about since she was a little girl. The place she'd thought she'd never see, let alone perform at. I can't, Maya whispered. I'm not ready. I haven't really practiced in months. I'm not. You're exactly ready, Mrs. Rothstein interrupted gently. That performance last night? That came from your heart when you had nothing left to give. Imagine what you can do when you're healthy, when you're strong, when you believe in yourself again. Maya looked down at her hands. They were clean now, the nails trimmed. But she could still see the calluses, the marks of who she'd been, who she'd always been underneath everything else. When? She asked. 3 weeks. That gives you time to prepare, to recover, to remember who you are. Maya nodded slowly. 3 weeks to transform back into the musician she'd once been, or maybe to become someone new, someone who'd seen the bottom and climbed back up, someone who understood that talent meant nothing without humanity, that success meant nothing without compassion. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from someone claiming to be from the Recording Academy. They wanted to talk about her future in music. Maya silenced her phone and looked at Mrs. Rothstein. How do I do this? How do I go from being invisible to being everywhere all at once? The old woman smiled. One day at a time, dear. One note at a time. Just like playing piano. You don't think about the whole piece at once. You just play the next note and then the next until suddenly you've created something beautiful. Outside, the city continued its endless noise. But inside this brownstone, in this moment, Maya felt something she hadn't felt since her mother died. Hope. The 3 weeks passed in a blur of practice, interviews, and slowly learning to be human again. Mrs. Rothstein had arranged for Maya to use a practice studio at Juilliard, and every day Maya spent hours at the piano, rebuilding her strength, remembering who she'd been, but she was different now. The music came from a deeper place. Every note carried the weight of what she'd survived. The other musicians at Juilliard treated her with a mixture of awe and curiosity. Some were genuinely kind. Others seemed uncomfortable around her, like poverty might be contagious. Maya tried not to think about the Carnegie Hall concert too much. When she did, her hands would start shaking and she'd have to stop playing. The pressure was enormous. Millions of people would be watching, either in person or online. Everyone wanted to see if the viral piano girl was real or just a one-time thing. The night before the concert, Maya couldn't sleep. She stood in Mrs. Rothstein's guest room, looking at the dress hanging on the closet door. It was beautiful, deep blue, elegant but simple. Mrs. Rothstein had taken her shopping, and Maya had cried in the dressing room, overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who'd become family. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. He'd been texting occasionally, always apologizing, always asking if there was anything he could do. Maya had forgiven him, sort of. He was trying. That had to count for something. Good luck tomorrow, his message said. You're going to be amazing. And I'm sorry, again. I'll probably be sorry for the rest of my life. Maya smiled a little. She typed back, stop apologizing. Just be better. That's all any of us can do. The next morning came too fast. Mrs. Rothstein made Maya breakfast, but she could barely eat. Her stomach was doing flips. A car was coming to take them to Carnegie Hall at noon. The concert was at 7, but there were sound checks, rehearsals, preparations. Breathe, Mrs. Rothstein reminded her. You've done this before. Not like this, Maya whispered. Never like this. Carnegie Hall was even more beautiful than Maya had imagined. Walking through those historic halls, knowing that legends had performed here, that her mother had dreamed of Maya playing here someday, it was almost too much. The organizers had done something special. They'd invited other young artists who'd faced homelessness or hardship. A singer from Detroit who'd lived in his car, a violinist from Houston who'd aged out of foster care, a cellist from Seattle who'd survived abuse. This concert wasn't just about Maya, it was about all of them. Backstage, Maya met them one by one. Each had a story that broke her heart and inspired her at the same time. They'd all kept creating, kept believing, even when the world had given them every reason to give up. "You started something," the singer told her. His name was Troy, and he had the warmest smile. "People are paying attention now." To all of us, the hours ticked by. Maya's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She practiced breathing exercises her mother had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Center yourself. Find the music inside. At 6:30, Mrs. Rothstein found Maya in the green room, staring at herself in the mirror. "I look like someone else," Maya said. "No," Mrs. Rothstein corrected gently. "You look like yourself again. The girl you were meant to become. What if I mess up? What if I freeze? What if..." "Then you mess up. Then you freeze. And then you keep going. That's all any of us can do." Mrs. Rothstein placed something in Maya's hand. It was a hair clip, old and worn. "This was my teacher's, the woman who saved me. I've kept it all these years. I want you to have it now." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I can't take this. You can. And you will. Because someday you'll give it to someone else who needs saving. That's how it works." We lift each other up. The concert hall was packed. Every seat filled. Maya could see it from backstage on the monitors. Celebrities, musicians, regular people who'd bought tickets just to see if the viral video was real. The live stream had already reached 10 million viewers, and the concert hadn't even started. The other performers went first, each one brilliant in their own way. The audience responded with thunderous applause, genuine appreciation. But Maya knew they were all waiting for her. The piano girl, the homeless prodigy, the one who'd played for food and changed everything. When it was finally her turn, Maya stood in the wings, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. And now the young woman whose performance touched millions around the world. A musician who reminded us that talent has no address, that genius can be found anywhere, that we must never judge what we don't understand. Please welcome Maya Chen. The applause was deafening as Maya walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, the piano gleaming. She could barely see the audience, which somehow made it easier. She sat at the bench, adjusted it slightly, and looked down at the keys. This was it. Everything had led to this moment. Maya thought about her mother, about Mrs. Rothstein, about every person who'd helped her get here. She thought about the people still on the streets, still struggling, still waiting for their chance. She thought about Derek learning to be better, about Richard and Brad facing their own shame and hopefully growing from it. But mostly she thought about the music. About why she'd started playing in the first place. Not for fame or money or recognition, but because music was the language she spoke when words weren't enough. Because it could say everything her heart felt but her mouth couldn't express. She began to play. This time she'd chosen several pieces. The Chopin that had saved her life. A Debussy prelude her mother had loved. An original composition she'd written in the past 3 weeks, something new born from old pain. The audience disappeared. The cameras disappeared. The pressure disappeared. There was only Maya and the piano and the music flowing between them like a conversation with an old friend. She played with technical perfection, yes. But more than that, she played with truth. Every note honest, every phrase meaningful. She didn't hide from the pain or the struggle. She let it all pour out, transforming it into something beautiful. When she finished, the silence lasted for several heartbeats. Then the audience erupted. People stood, shouting, crying, applauding so loud it sounded like thunder. Maya opened her eyes and saw them, really saw them for the first time. All these people connected by music, by her story, by the reminder that we're all more than our circumstances. Mrs. Rothstein was in the front row, tears streaming down her face, clapping until her hands must have hurt. Next to her, Maya was surprised to see Derek and his father, Antonio. They were both applauding too, their faces serious and respectful. Maya stood and bowed, and the applause somehow got louder. Flowers were brought to the stage. So many flowers. The other young performers joined her, and they all bowed together. A united front of survivors, of fighters, of people who'd refused to let hardship destroy their gifts. Backstage afterward, Maya was surrounded by people, journalists, agents, well-wishers. but she pushed through them to get to Mrs. Rothstein. "Thank you," Maya said, hugging the old woman tight. "For everything. For seeing me when no one else did." "You saved yourself, dear," Mrs. Rothstein replied. "I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it." Later that night, back at the brownstone, Maya checked her phone one last time before bed. The concert had raised over $2 million for homeless youth programs. Her performance videos were being shared everywhere. Music schools were starting scholarship programs in her mother's name, but the message that meant the most was from a girl in Ohio. "I'm 15, it said. "I've been homeless for 6 months. I play violin, but I had to sell it for food. I saw your concert tonight. I'm not giving up. Thank you for showing me it's possible." Maya typed back through tears. "Don't give up. I promise you it gets better. Keep playing, even if it's just in your head. Keep believing. And when you make it, and you will, remember to help the next person. That's how we change the world." She hit send and looked out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, people were still struggling. Still hungry. Still invisible. But maybe, just maybe, her story had made it a little easier for them to hold on, to believe that they mattered, that their gifts mattered, that they deserved to be seen. Maya returned to Berkshire Conservatory the following week, but she was different now. She started a program visiting shelters and community centers every weekend, teaching piano to kids who couldn't afford lessons. She used her platform to talk about homelessness, about how quickly life can change, about the importance of compassion. Derek had meant what he said about being better. He'd started volunteering at a soup kitchen, and he'd pushed his father to create a program at Maestro's providing free meals to struggling artists. It wasn't enough to undo what had happened, but it was something. Richard, the maitre d', had been demoted, but he'd asked to stay. He wanted to learn from his mistakes. Brad had quit, and no one had heard from him since. Mrs. Rothstein remained a constant presence in Maya's life. Not just a benefactor, but family. The grandmother Maya had never had. They had dinner together every Sunday, and Mrs. Rothstein always asked about Maya's week, her music, her dreams. "What's next for you?" Mrs. Rothstein asked one evening. Maya smiled. "I don't know. Finish school. Keep playing. Keep helping others. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything." "Your mother would be so proud," Mrs. Rothstein said softly. Maya touched the hair clip in her hair, the one Mrs. Rothstein had given her before the concert. She wore it every day now, a reminder of how one person's kindness can change a life. "I think she would be," Maya agreed, "not because I'm famous or successful, but because I didn't forget where I came from, because I'm using my gift the way she always said I should, to touch people, to bring beauty into a world that can be really hard sometimes." Outside, the city hummed with life. Millions of people living their stories, fighting their battles, dreaming their dreams. And Maya Chen, once invisible, now seen, would spend the rest of her life making sure that others got their chance to be seen too. Because that's what the music had taught her. We all have a song to sing. We all deserve to be heard.